Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a racist HOA Karen really dislikes that my disabled son plays in our yard and calls the police on my kid for using chalk on the sidewalk. She then gets my car illegally towed, and that is when I declared war. I took her to court and stood up for my rights. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. People of the internet, I present to you the story of the Karen that my family ended up moving in next to when we changed houses. So for context, my family is Chinese and we moved into an HOA neighborhood that was primarily white. The woman living next door, we knew from day one that she was racist towards us. One day she came to see the new neighbors, and when she saw that it was us, she was shocked. She asked if we were the helpers and when the new neighbors would be getting there. We told her that we are actually the ones that bought this house, and she was shocked and told us that it is not really the place for our type of people. Of course, immediate offense taken. It did not get better from there because she kept deciding to tattle on us to the HOA for things that we were not even doing wrong. Having family come over once a week was considered a crazy party to her. This was post-pandemic restrictions, and Karen was clearly one of those stupid people that decided if you're Asian, you must be sick and at fault for the pandemic. I hated it more than anything, but we already bought the house and could not exactly just move away. Our son has a disability and it is noticeable when we are out and about. He wears leg braces and is not the steadiest while walking. We are so proud of him though, because at birth we were told that he might never even walk. So the milestones he has gotten to at this point are miles above what the doctors thought, and he is our little miracle. One thing he loves to do is play soccer in the front yard with his friends. Kids at school don't seem to comment or mind that he is a little bit different, and we love the school system in this new area. Karen, on the other hand, likes to cause problems when she sees our son, especially to the point that we told him if she approaches him to run inside and yell for us to come out. We don't trust her anywhere near him and don't want her ideas upsetting him. Anyway, one day he was playing soccer outside by himself because his friends had left, but he wanted to play until dinner. I heard Karen outside, and just like I told him, I also heard him calling for help and coming into the house. I got right into Karen's face because with all of her racist crap, there is a line. That line is even trying to mess with my son. Me, what are you doing in our yard? I told you to leave us alone. Karen, he cannot be playing like that where everybody can see. I can call the HOA and get you fined. Me, like the last 5 times you tried and called him over some crap, he can play in our yard, Karen. Karen, I already called the police. They should be here any minute, and I'm not getting off your lawn until they come and hear what I have to say. And yes, she really did call the police, and a few minutes later about 4 cars came. I have no idea if that's normal or if she said something to cause this situation. Well, anyway, she had her arms crossed and the officers came over and asked who called the police, and she was quick to take responsibility. Karen, me officer. I called because I caught your little idiot son destroying public property. I can show you right here on the sidewalk. And by the way guys, in this situation Karen actually used a slur for disabled people that I don't really want to say on YouTube out of respect. Either way, this was the first time I heard of destroyed property and followed to see what she was talking about. On the sidewalk were chalk drawings that him and his friends did. Nothing vulgar or anything, just stick figures and animals. Classic kid stuff, and the police agreed that there was nothing illegal about that. Vandalism would be if he destroyed the sidewalk or something like that, not just drew on it with chalk. Karen was angry that the police were not gonna do anything about it and decided to get one last jab to me right in front of them. Karen, nobody wants to see your kid in the yard playing. It makes the neighborhood look poor, letting a racial slur that cannot even walk out in the open. She did eventually go away and back to her own home, but I was fuming. I wanted to wait until I calmed down in order to come up with some kind of plan. I don't like acting out of rage, and I wouldn't want to do anything that got me arrested. I calmed down the rest of the day, night, and the next day I woke up to find my car just gone. We do street parking here, and it doesn't always mean your car ends up in front of your house. I was parked in front of Karen's house the night before, and my car being gone had to be done by her. So then I went to her door and banged on it until she answered. I demanded where my car was, and she told me that she had it towed and I should not park my car in front of her house anymore. That was seriously the last straw for me, and I decided that I was gonna take serious action against Karen. The first obvious one being getting my car back and suing her for having it towed illegally. I won't go into details with that because it was pretty basic. It turns out she had a friend that owned a tow company and they towed my car even though it was highly illegal. The tow company got a huge fine and Karen was forced to get my car back to me and pay for the cab that I had to take to and from work that day. For the bigger revenge though, I called the man that owned the house where Karen lived. She was actually just a renter and I wanted to use that to my advantage. This might be a good time to mention that both my husband and I are real estate agents, so we buy and sell properties all the time. After a meeting and us giving him a good deal, we soon became the owners of the house. Karen was now our tenant and we could do anything we wanted now because of it. Different places have tenant laws, but here if you buy a home that has a renter, you have the right to kick them out. I know it's probably different for buying apartments, but we looked into the law. We were allowed to not renew her contract under our new ownership and have her evicted with a 30-day warning. I guess she saw the eviction and contacted the old owner who gave her our number. Suddenly thinking she was talking to different people, she was so nice, saying that she was a good renter and wanted a meeting to at least talk about the property. We then agreed and said we would be at the property to talk to her. When we showed up with the paperwork, she was furious. She was yelling that she would not let Asian people be her landlord and she would get sick staying there. She lunged forward and threw a punch that hit my husband right in the face. We of course called the police and she said that the dirty Asians were trying to break into her house. We then showed the documents to the officers and they arrested Karen for assault. Also, insulting the landlord made her eviction immediate and by the end of the day we had all of her stuff out on the street. It was satisfying to get a racist Karen thrown out of the neighborhood. I wanted to teach her a lesson to never mess with us and never try to come after my son again. And now, after all, she does not have a home anymore and has a police record because of the assault. Good luck getting approved now. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I really enjoyed OP's smart revenge in this story. That's exactly the way you should deal with a stupid racist Karen. And by the way guys, I'm curious, have you ever lived next to a neighbor from hell? And if so, what has happened? Does that person still live next to you? Have you maybe become friends over time? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would very much appreciate it if you could also like the video, because that would help me tremendously. The next one is titled Dumb Tow Truck Driver. So the cast is me, Mighty Elevator, RL Rude Lady, OF Officer, and TD Tow Truck Driver. A little backstory, I moved to a new city almost a year ago and started to take the bus to and from school. This all started in October, but I stopped dealing with her crap in January. Anyway, so I was waiting outside school one day and this lady came and parked right in front of the bus stop. I knocked on her window and she rolled it down. The following conversation ensues. Me, hi, do you mind moving your car? It's a bus stop. RL scoffs and rolls up window. Now I have a short temper sometimes and this is one of those times. Couple minutes later, me slightly annoyed. Please move your car. RL, where else is there to park? Many other spaces open. Me more annoyed. Literally anywhere else. Get your eyes checked. I pointed to other spots. RL, F you, and drives to another spot. Now this is happening every day up until January when I lose my mind. But during this time, I do some research and find out parking in front of the bus stop is illegal. Oh boy, am I ever happy for some sweet revenge. So I start taking some photos proving that she is parking illegally and write down her plate number and the address of where this is happening. Once I had enough evidence, I emailed the city bylaws department and they confirmed that parking there was in fact illegal. I also attached my phone number so they could call anytime. And they did. They asked me to call them when I saw her again so they could send a tow truck and an officer. Monday was the day. She of course parks in the bus stop again and I have a grin on my face. Me knocking on window, move your car. If you don't, I will call the boys in blue and get your car impounded. RL, you won't. You're just a stupid teenager, no respect. Just move, Karen. No. Just wait and see where you park when you start driving. Not in front of a bus stop like a crackhead, that's for sure. How dare you? I will tell the principal. Well, try me. RL huffs and turns off the car. I'm doing it now. She runs inside the school and I call the bylaws department. They say that they'll be there soon. About 5 minutes later, an officer and a truck shows up. The officer gets out and asks, "This is her car?" Me, it sure is. OF, alrighty, signals for tow truck driver TD, begins to prepare the truck and attach the car while the officer writes a ticket. RL comes storming out. "What in the hell are you doing?" OF, you parked here illegally and your car is being impounded. "There is nowhere else to park." OF, does not matter. The law is the law. The RL starts yelling at the OF for a few minutes. In the meantime, the TD has hooked her car up to the truck and writes a bill. When RL has seemed to calm down, the officer handed her a ticket for a parking violation. The TD gave her the towing bill as well. RL's jaw dropped to Earth's core. OF, the fee is $50 per day for your car being stowed in the lot. RL now fuming, "You cannot do this." OF, neither can you park in a bus stop. RL turning to me, "You little piece of crap. You did this." The bus turns around the corner and stops to let me on. Me, "Thanks OF and TD." I grinned and gave RL the bird as I got on. It is now April and I have not seen her since. The next one is titled Mighty Mailbox Revenge. I posted this as a reply to someone else's mailbox story. I was informed that it should be its own post, so here it is, edited slightly for clarity. This didn't start out as a quest for vengeance, we just wanted mail delivery to our house. Vengeance came as a byproduct, but it was truly delightful nonetheless. So, mailbox story time. This happened back in 1982 for the record. My folks moved to a very rural area on a gravel road. No one had previously lived here, so it was a battle just getting mail delivery in the first place. My folks went several rounds with the local postmaster. He was somewhat enamored with his own power and very much a rules to the letter kind of guy. Every I must be dotted, every T crossed, and if there's so much as a semicolon out of place, you'll have to start all over again. He seemed to have made it his personal mission to make getting mail delivery to a new address as difficult as humanly possible. Ultimately, my folks managed to fill out the paperwork to his satisfaction, and he begrudgingly allowed us to put up a box and receive mail delivery at our new home. Dad was extremely careful in the placement of our box and making absolutely certain that it was the exact height, precise placement from the road, etc. to avoid annoying our local postmaster any more than we already had. There are, or at least were, specific rules about rural mailboxes. Dad, of course, followed every single one. That first mailbox was perfect. The man who drove the road grader was as annoyed as the local postmaster, as he now had a new driveway to accommodate. We suspect that's why he had it out for our mailbox. After the road grader had demolished 3 of our mailboxes, Dad got pissed. Previously, he had used the most basic design, just a post in the ground with a box on top. Now he was motivated though. Dad got a hold of a 9-foot long section of metal pipe. It is 4 inches in diameter, outer measurement, and has 3/4 inch thick walls. I have no idea what this was originally intended for. But I know how Dad used it. He dug a hole 5.5 feet deep. He welded an upside down tripod shape, think open umbrella, to the bottom of the pole and dropped it into the 6-foot wide hole. Each welded on leg was about 3 feet of some kind of rebar, and there were 5 such spokes. He then dropped some huge rocks on top of the tripod shape to hold it in place. The empty spaces around the huge rocks were filled in with gravel, and he dumped sand to fill in the air gaps. Then he filled the rest of the hole in with dirt and mounted the mailbox on top of the post. 3 days after Dad installed the new mailbox, we heard the road grader coming down the road. Our house is a 1/4 mile from the road, but we heard the loud clang from inside. We also heard the cursing and swearing from inside. No one went down to look until they heard the road grader drive away. When they did, the box itself was slightly dented on one side, but it was still firmly upright and functional. 3 weeks later, we received a bill from the township for a bent grader blade. It was accompanied by a letter informing us that we had caused damage to city property because our mailbox was installed incorrectly. It would need to be moved, and we were liable for a bill of a couple of $1,000s worth of repairs. But here where it becomes pro-revenge instead of petty. Recall the fact that the local postmaster was annoyed with us over our battle to get mail delivery? Well, Mom had made a point of each time we reinstalled the mailbox, taking photographs down to the post office and having the local postmaster sign off approval of the height, placement, etc. She had done the same with Dad's Superpost and had documented signed approval of the box dated the day before the road grader had bent his blade trying to demolish the box. She submitted copies of the invoice for the grader blade and the letter stating that the damage was our fault because our mailbox was incorrectly placed. Right to the post office. She also submitted copies of the official post office approval of the box to the township. This jerk of a postmaster was also quite prideful and became furious that his authority was being called into question by some podunk township. As far as he was concerned, the township was not questioning my parents, they were stating that his judgment was wrong. I don't know what went down between the postmaster and the township, but we received a second letter from the post office reiterating their approval of our mailbox. We also got a formal apology from the township and noticed that the road grader's contract had been terminated because he had lied about damage to city property. It was worded with a tone that said, "Please don't sue us because a contracted employee damaged your property." For the record, that post that installed nearly 40 years ago is still standing. We have replaced the box on top many times. That post, however, has now wrecked 2 cars and a truck in addition to that long ago road grader. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I really enjoy these mailbox revenge stories. Even though they are kind of similar, they are always very satisfying to read. If you have ever gotten mailbox revenge on someone, especially the postmaster, then please let us know in the comments. The next one is titled, "The best revenge is doing well, the better than best is to rub their noses in it." About 15 years ago, I had a horrible boss. This guy was an a-hole and liked it. It went beyond being demanding or easy to anger. He actually took pleasure in trying to humiliate and belittle everyone in every single conversation he had with them. He was a director and let it go to his head. This guy would demand you do something, and when you did it, demand to know who told you to do it. And when you said it was him, he would smile and threaten your job. I avoided him as best as I could. However, at one point a posting in another state opened up and I wanted the job. I asked for and was given said posting. I was told to be in that state in 2 weeks. I broke the lease on my apartment and paid the difference. My wife quit her job. We went out there on our own dime and found a place to live. 2 days before we were set to move, I get the call. It is the a-hole boss. "Don't bother going out there. I have decided to eliminate the posting." I was livid. My life was totally interrupted, and when I complained, I was told I had an attitude problem. I stewed for a few days, but then found a position at another company in the state I wanted to be in and moved out there anyway. I came to find out that eventually this a-hole director took another job at the competition. All went well for a while, but then he got greedy and began negotiations with yet another company using his corporate email address. Like a total idiot. They obviously found out and fired his ass, but the icing on the cake was that the other company he was talking with never gave him the job after all, so there he was, jobless. This was pleasure enough for me, total schadenfreude. Though a friend who knows the a-hole, I found out that he never seemed to get a job after that. 6 months went by, then 12, then 18, and then 2 years, then 4 years. He got poorer and poorer. His hot wife left him and took his children with her. He was sleeping in an empty house which was eventually foreclosed on, and he got kicked out of it. At this point, things get fuzzy, because even my friend didn't know where he was. He may have been in the street, he may have moved in with his aging mother. Meanwhile, my own career had been on an upward arc and I was climbing higher up that corporate ladder. It wasn't long before his resume ended up on my desk. It is a small industry and normally I would have tossed out his application because everyone and their mother in this business knew he was caught courting the competition on the company dime. His reputation as a total ass was well known and the job he applied for was low level. I mean, $10 an hour low level grunt work. He was a former director at 6 figures and now was willing to work bad work at a crappy wage just to feed himself. Anyone would have considered him overqualified, including me. But I had to have him in my office. I wanted to see him on the other side of my desk, asking me for breadcrumbs like a common street beggar. I wanted to see this a-hole who nearly ruined me and a dozen other lives and laughed at it, groveling for a job at my feet. So of course I scheduled an interview. I was going to waste his time like he wasted mine. It was one of the most pleasurable experiences I've ever had. He pretended not to recognize me, but I could see that he did. He had gotten skinnier and reeked of desperation. He had no idea that I knew the whole story, so he lied to me about the whole reason he was out of work, and when I told him exactly why, he looked defeated. I told him I had no place for a liar, let alone an a-hole, and when he tried to shake my hand at the end of the interview, I refused and asked him to leave. There is an old saying, you see the same people on the way down as on the way up. And a user in the comments this time posted a very interesting story, however, a little trigger warning because this story is about bullying, but in the end the good guy prevails, so I would say it is very much worth reading. The commenter says, I was bullied mercilessly in school, like every single morning from 3rd grade till I eventually quit high school, consisting of me being literally sick to my stomach about the prospect of going to school, and every minute in school was punctuated by abuse, both verbal and physical. This was back when bullying was not yet a thing as it is now. I am 30-ish, so early 90s-ish, and teachers either turned a blind eye or told me to suck it up. Some even participated in the verbal abuse anyway. To make a long story very short and cover the intervening decade or so, I am now doing pretty well. I own a company that I started, I have a net worth of 8 high figures, and I am pretty happy. I work damn hard to get where I am, and I love it. About 6 months ago, we were adding some low-level positions. We have been growing a lot and basically needed people to do some physical work to take the load off the smarter guys and let them be more efficient at their jobs. I have always personally interviewed every single person who works for me, but really, up until this point every single employee was important to me, and these positions were really not going to be important at all. I almost agreed with the newly hired HR manager to leave me out of these hires, but at the last minute decided, while I would let her lead everything and conduct all the interviews, I wanted to swing by every single one briefly and introduce myself and get a feel. I told her I wouldn't even give an up/down on anyone unless I saw something big stick out, as I didn't want to step on her toes too much. I had done a half dozen of these informal greets one day and got another text saying to drop by for the next one. To set the stage a bit, I don't dress in fancy clothes, though I do drive a number of fancy and/or fast cars, so I looked really nondescript walking into her office. As the candidate turned around to look at me, I realized who he was. Literally the worst out of all of them. I was in school with this guy from 3rd grade till I left the public high school, and every single day of it he made my life hell. He threw me off the top of a slide one time and sent me to a hospital to get stitches. None of the other kids saw anything, and it was determined I was lying and I must have fallen. He looked at me, dressed rather shabbily, and was like, "Whoa man, what are you doing here?" I basically dropped off the map to anyone local after I dropped out of high school, though I did go to an alternate school and got my diploma. I collected my thoughts for a second. Honestly, my first instinct was to tell him off loudly, but I didn't. I calmly extended my hand and said, "Nice to see you, John," not his real name. "I own this company." I forgot exactly what I said after that, but I politely excused myself and walked off. I more or less ran to my office before I lost my composure. I really have not dealt with this crap before and was grabbing for my phone to text back the HR manager and tell her to tell him to F off. I made it to my office before I finished that message and closed the door and seriously had myself a good cry. When I regained my composure, looked at my phone to finish the message and clicked send, and there was a message from the HR lady. "What the hell just happened? After you left, John said to tell you he said he's sorry and then just walked out of the interview." I don't know why, but something about all that, I ended up replying and telling her to call him and give him the job. He's been working here for 6 months now, and I know that every single day when he walks into the building, he needs to walk past whichever of my cars I decided to drive to work that day with the sign CEO Parking. Every single paycheck he gets, he knows it is coming from me, and I could, if I wanted to, just tell him to F off. All of his co-workers, they all know me and sing my praises. I like to think I'm a pretty good boss. I have since heard in a roundabout way that he is seriously confused and a bit effed up about the situation. My revenge? Not only did I become far more successful than any of my tormentors, but I also ended up being the far better man. And Ripestars, ironically enough, this revenge stories buried in the comments is, at least in my opinion, probably one of the most satisfying and best revenge stories we have read in a long time. But I have to say, if I would be in OP's situation, I don't think I would have been as epic as OP in the situation. I probably would have fired the guy instantly or did not allow him to get the job in the first place. Major respect for OP. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then either check out my binge watch playlist, which has thousands of hours of content, and if you still don't have enough, please don't forget to either check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube or subscribe to my membership program here on YouTube for exclusive videos that you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.